Good day, everyone. Scooter coming to you live from the Granville Guitars World Headquarters here in lovely St. Petersburg, Florida. Today we're going to take a close look at the Granville Super Chief amp, currently under construction. This is an amp I'm building for myself. I've built a lot of Marshalls over the years, a lot of Marshall-style amps, variants on that theme. Of several different sorts, and I've decided a while back I wanted a 100-watt Marshall. So after looking at some of the prices of good 100-watt Marshalls, I decided it was going to be better if I just built one. So I did. What you see here before you, the chassis, and you'll see various angles of it as we're going through here. I received the chassis from Modulus Amplification over in the UK. Very fine chassis. Has the nice gold plating to it that you would expect of a vintage JCM 800, which is what this is meant to emulate. You can see there's a whole bunch of holes in the front of the chassis, and that's to give you, a bunch of different options. I'm not going to be using a lot of those holes, but we'll get to that here shortly. If we zoom in and take a closer look at the board, I made this board myself out of very thick fiberglass. This is 3mm fiberglass, and it's black. And I've populated it myself with what I feel are the best components for the job. I did find one ancient 0.68 UF right here for the front end of the amplifier. That's actually an old mustard cap. I've had that thing knocking around in a drawer forever. It's never been in an amplifier. I don't remember where I got it, and I just thought, what the heck, I'm going to throw that thing in there. We can see as we scan through here, silver mica caps up there, Mojo Dijons, which are my preferred caps for a Marshall style. There are other options and other good options. I just like the Mojos. The Dijons work well for me, and I've used them in a bunch of different amplifiers. Now, you're probably going to start screaming and hollering and saying, oh, where are all the carbon comps? Well, you know what? I'm not really that fond of carbon comps. I don't like what they do. They become unreliable eventually in their lifetime. I think the carbon films are quieter, more reliable, closer to spec, which is important to me. As we pass through the amp here and we're getting down into filter supply land stuff, those two 10Ks in the middle, etc., we begin to see metal oxides where power handling is a concern. But still mostly carbon films and metal oxides. That's what I like. It's my amp. That's what I used. Down there we've got our rectifier diodes. I like to use 1.5 amp rectifier diodes because they get the crap smacked out of them. And I like the extra there. You see our bias supply, capacitors there. And driver section, there's the bias potentiometer hiding out up there, waiting to do its job. I can't finish the amp at present because Modulus is, as a matter of fact, I just got an email. They just shipped my face and rear plates today from the UK, so I'm thinking a week or two I'll have those and I'll be able to finish this thing up, and it'll be party time. You can see hiding out here underneath the board, you can see our large-scale filter caps. 4 of them anyway. There are 2 more. There's one down there. And then we got power tube, sockets, and all I've wired up so far is the filaments and the ground connections for the tube sockets. You can see one thing I like to do here, and this is kind of stolen from Tweed fenders. You'll see this a lot in old Fender amplifiers. If you look there, they're shock mounting on the 9-pin tube sockets. You actually enlarge the hole, and I put a rubber grommet in that hole So the entire socket is actually floating on rubber, and it helps. A lot of times, particularly in Marshall designs where you're really gainy, the best sounding and most appropriate tubes for a given job can be slightly microphonic. And there's a real fine line between microphonic and irritating. So this kind of allows you to use a tube that's maybe a little more microphonic than you would otherwise. It's going to kind of isolate it from the chassis. I did it with all 3 of the 9-pin sockets. You don't have to do it on the driver's tube here. It's really not as vital, but particularly these two, the input tube and the gain stage tubes, those tubes really need that. Slight pause whilst I answer the door. All right, doors answered, repairs taken in. We're back to this now. So yeah, the shock mounting. I just do it. You know, it's not all that difficult to do, and I think it does make a difference when you're talking about a high gain thing. So anyway, these designs are pretty simple inside. This amp is going to have a Metropolis Zero Loss effects loop in it, and this chassis has the holes. They are right here. It's going to be a little tricky, I think, to make it fit, but it should go in there, and I'm kind of excited about that because I do love me some Metropolis Zero Loss. Now, if you'll look up here, and I'm going to have to take this board off again because I have not mounted the choke yet, and it has to, and the output transformer as well. Their screws are going to have to be under there. You'll see 2 red wires here and a black wire here. These are for a filter cap that lives underneath the board, and I went ahead and ran those wires. Let's flip this over. Oh, by the way, you can see my, if I lean it forward slightly and try and actually back out, there you go. You can see my filament wires down there. How anal is that, huh? There's some debate as to how necessary that is to twist your filament wires in such a way. I just find that it helps hold them back out of the way of everything else, and they're less likely to flop around through the amp's life. So that's kind of why I do it. I've seen amps that don't have their filament wires twisted at all, and they're dead quiet. So who knows? Certainly not me. It's one of those things where it's kind of, well, whatever. Now, as we flip this bad boy over, you can see the top side of the chassis. I've used F&T caps for all of my filter caps here. Those are my favorites. Wonderful product. Never had a problem with them. Almost every other brand you can think of, I've had issues with. The JJs are pretty good. Frankly, I like to use the blue ones on the F&Ts on these kind of amps because they're blue, just like the old Marshalls. But the JJs are just fine as well. I've used JJs plenty of times in the past, and they seem to do just fine. The 50 microfarad / 50 microfarad at 500 volts that these are. And you'll notice there's more of them because this is an earlier design. Later on in the 800's life, they eliminated some of this filtering, just seemingly without cause. I don't know why, but the more filtering in the choke, it just kind of helps it to handle the pounding that it gets a little better. So I've built this to an early to mid 80s kind of style of the 2203. And if you did not see my previous video, let's take this down. Right there are the transformers that we're going to be putting in this bad boy right here. Mercury Magnetics Tone Clone. Can't say enough good about Mercury. Are they more expensive? Yeah, they're more expensive. The raw materials are more expensive. They put more of that money into the raw materials that go into making a transformer. There's some expensive R&D, etc., etc. Are there other brands of transformers out there? Yeah, there are other good brands of transformers out there. I've used Hammonds, I've used Classic Tones. They'll all do a fair job, but I have proven to myself a long time ago that the Mercuries are just a little bit more. And that's the word I use. The tone that they provide is just more. It's more dynamic. It's more fluid in general. You get better headroom, better clarity. I just find that they're better in just about every way that I can think of. We got the choke down there, and these are tone clones. And what that means is that they've been reverse engineered from vintage examples of the correct transformers that we're speaking of. Output transformer right there in the middle, and then the power transformer over here. And I'm preparing to mount these guys onto the chassis this morning, and start running a few of the wires. I can't finish the amp without the front plate and the rear plate, because they, all the controls are on the front, and that plate has to be in place before your potentiometers, jacks, etc. can be mounted on the front. And on the rear, output jacks for speakers, effects loop, voltage selector, speaker impedance selector, the socket for the AC, the fuses, all that stuff has to be mounted through those face plates. So I can't do any of that stuff until the face plates show up. And that's kind of where we're at today. This is sort of the first installment of what's going to be several installments on this build. I'm calling this the Granville Super Chief. And there's one other unique feature for this amplifier that I want to show off. Stand by. All right, here's the cabinet that this amp is going to go in. It's a little different. It's a little special. Back when I first started entertaining the idea of building Marshall-style amplifiers, I bought this cabinet, paid way too much for it on eBay. I think it came with a chassis. I'm not sure. I don't think I did anything with the chassis. Again, I don't recall specifically. But it came from a company called Raw Cabs, I believe. I'm pretty sure. And it had no Tolex on it or anything. And as I decided to do this project up, I thought, it might be kind of fun to, instead of Tolexing a cabinet, which frankly I don't have the patience for, because it just seems like it's going to be a lot of work, maybe I should just stain it. So what I did was I stained it and put some poly on it, and I love the way it came out. Now it's actually kind of two-tone. You'll notice that the faceplate has actually been stained to match the Granville Lucy guitar, which is a guitar I made for myself last year. And Lucy is one of our cats. And I thought it would be fun to make an amplifier and call it Chief after our other cat. And this is turned into the Granville Super Chief because it was once a super lead, Marshall super lead. So I thought Super Chief was kind of fun. So, this was a 50-watt cabinet. I did not have the top vent. I had to, let me actually move in here a little bit. I had to route out the hole for the top vent. And I stained the cabinet with an ebony stain. And it gave me this after the clear coat. I really, really like it. It's real tough. It's glossy. It should weather very well. But you can see the faceplate. I went a bit further. I went ahead and put some amber tinted nitrocellulose lacquer over the top of that, which is what I finished the Lucy guitar with. And Lucy is kind of that color. Sort of looks like a glass of bourbon or something. And I'm really fond of that finish. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. This is the cabinet for the Super Chief. Marshall handle, nothing crazy or weird about that. It's got big thick rubber feet on it on the bottom. I opted for a gold piping to accent this. I'm not sure whether you can see that. Got to get my mic around here where it can hear me. I just thought it sort of set it off, do the handle with the gold caps on it, and then also have the gold piping around that front. But that's the only place where the piping is. Everywhere there should be, or normally is, Tolex, we went ahead and just finished it out. Give you a side view here. I used a brush-on poly for this, and it says to do 3 coats in the instructions, but I only did 2. I thought it was plenty, and it's created a really nice hard finish to go over this staining. It's going to get dinged up and dented up. I mean, it's a pine cabinet, so it's going to get, mucked up. I have no illusions about it staying nice. But I just wanted it to look kind of rough and tumble and, a little bit different than your average bear. Just kind of give it a little different look. Set it off from, stuff you normally see. So anyway, that's the cabinet for the Super Chief. That's about all I got to say on this matter for today. Until I get the face plates in, it's really not much more to relate as far as this amp goes. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to hooking it up with my 50 watt and going back and forth with my Metropolis amp switcher and really comparing the two and getting inside their differences. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So, well, that's all I know for today on the Granville Super Chief amp. This is part 1. There'll be other installments coming up in future, including a sound demo so you can hear what this thing sounds like when it's finished. If you have any questions about anything we do here at Granville Guitars, seek us out on the web at www.granvilleguitars.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram and the much neglected blog over at WordPress, A View from the Granville Bench. That's all I know for today. Be good to one another.